Lewis, number one takeaway. What was the statement that Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys made on national television last night?
I think the number one statement was that, look, we're ready for it. We're ready for it in the biggest of moments. And Dak in particular is ready for it. Like, he's the guy, as indicated right there by his post-game comments, that everyone really focuses their scrutiny on, whether or not he can make good decisions with the football, play at a high level, play at a top 2, top 3 level when his team needs him the most. Maybe when everything else around him, meaning all three phases, aren't clicking. And last night, make no mistake about it, the defensive phase was not clicking. And I think he showed you about the fact that he was, 29 of 41. CD had a couple drops, so he could have been even better. He was well over 100 in his passer rating, and he was in total command. And I think the one thing about the command thing is this. Aaron Rodgers spoke about this earlier on this week. And look, great players may not always be able to coach players, but great players recognize great performances. And Aaron Rodgers mentioned the fact that right now Dak is so in control with everything that is happening at the line of scrimmage, pre-snap and post-snap. And he is playing so on balance in terms of his ability to play with consistent efficiency, consistent mechanics, consistent decision-making. And that's why right now, as of last night, he's number 1 in the NFL in QBR, number 2 in completion percentage above expected, which are the ways in which you should really statistically judge quarterbacks, because that takes everything into account. You can't argue with anything about what the guy is doing, and he's ready right now for this tough stretch that's coming. And I think he'll play the best football that we've ever seen him play.
Yeah, that stretch will begin with Philadelphia a week from Sunday. We'll get to all of that. By the way, you mentioned he's 1 and he's 2. I can tell you also right now he's top 3. Will, we can put it up there as I turn to Graziano here. He's now top 3 in the MVP odds as well. If you take a look at ESPN Bet right now, he is behind only Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes, and he's coming on strong. And Graziano, you said to me this morning, last night was exactly what the Cowboys needed. Why?
Yeah. Well, they have the Eagles next week, as we've been discussing, and they needed a test that they passed. Right? They needed to be pushed and to succeed, be able to come back and win a game. Because what have they not done? They hadn't beat teams with winning records. Seattle come in 6-5. They hadn't won a close game. Obviously, this was a very close game, came right down to the end. I think this was exactly the perfect game to get the Cowboys ready for their biggest game of the year next week against Philly. Dak Prescott is, look, everything we've said about them back in September. They couldn't get the ball in the end zone when they got inside the 20. Well, they're doing that now, to the point where on the opening drive last night, when they settled for a field goal, you're kind of surprised. If you've been watching the Cowboys for the past month, you're like, oh, I would assume they would go score there. So they're clicking, and they're ready, and they're going to have more rest than the Eagles when they go into that game. It could not be a better setup for them. And that MVP list, that MVP favorites list, if the Cowboys win next Sunday, he will be number 1 on that list. There's no question in my mind.
Well, you said this morning in our call, realistically speaking, if the Cowboys win the division, then what?
He's probably MVP, because the way that award, and I'm not saying that he should be, but the way that award voting works, I think that, you look at the best teams, the best stories, and he would certainly be among them.
And Mike T, there's one stat you keep coming back to that I think really illustrates just how well he's playing.
Yeah, he's 2nd in the league in completion percentage, but he's 4th in yards per pass attempt. So similar to what Lewis said, Greeny, which is he's accurate, but he's getting the ball down the field. That means they're explosive on offense. That's really hard to do. Typically, you see one or the other. You see checkdowns with accuracy, but like that throw to CD Lamb, that is really hard to defend. Those tight window throws that he's getting down the field, and that's why he's really, what Graz is saying, one of the best players in the sport right now.
Now, here's what I will say. I'm very glad that at no point when I was in school was Bart Scott one of my teachers, because you're a tough grader. I'm looking at your face, and you have a very underwhelmed expression as everyone else is sitting here throwing bouquets in the direction of Dak Prescott.
No, listen, to quote Bad Boys 1, that's how you drive. Right? That's how you play quarterback, right? We were waiting for Dak Prescott when you had a guy on the opposite sideline that was playing at a high level. Listen, my hat's off to Geno Smith. I think he played a tremendous game as well. And it could have went either way, right? One play here, one play there. I thought the refereeing was horrible. I thought it was abysmal yesterday. But listen, this is what they needed. They needed a win like this to have confidence. The reality is, right, when you talk about Heisman, you talk about MVP, it's about defining moments against great teams and great opponents. He's going to have the opportunity, right? Listen, we talk about success is lease, not own, right? So we understand that, he's going to face Tua. He's going to face Goff. He's going to face Hurts. He's going to face Allen. And that, he may or may not be the B side, right? Understand, Geno Smith was the B side, right? we understand that Geno's a great story, and he outdueled Geno Smith. But if he outduels Tua, Allen, Hurts, then he'll get the award, and it'll be well-deserved. But, I don't want to, give them all their roses now because they have a tough road ahead.
Long way to go.
We kick the can down the road, and let's see, because we can be taking all these things back later. He stepped up when the defense wasn't playing at the level we're accustomed to seeing.
Yeah, they've set themselves up for success. They're playing at a level where you could see them beating all those teams. The Eagle game was close in Philly.
Yep.
Right? It's not ridiculous to say that they can win that game at home. So they've set themselves up for success. Whether they deliver on it, obviously, will be the story of the season.
Yeah, I want to push back on Bart because the trajectory of this team is doing this. And Greeny, you have to say to yourself, how are we going to get better post-trade deadline? And their solutions are on campus, specifically their two tight ends, Jake Ferguson and Luke Schoonmaker. And Hembo gave me the stat, but over the last 3 games, they have 11 first downs, and they're averaging 9.3 yards per attempt. Now, all of a sudden, when you have CeeDee Lamb, Tony Pollard, and now 2 tight ends that can make plays, Greeny, they're getting better. I think they're going to stand toe-to-toe with that roster.
Did the Cowboys last night, the way they play right now, the way their quarterback is playing right now, is this a team you could see in the Super Bowl this year, yes or no?
No, because they can't run the football in between the tackles, too. That's a part of why they struggle once they get to the red area. The field gets condensed. They don't have a running game that's physical when it comes to in between the tackles. The touchdown run that they did have was a toss to Tony Pollard. So, unless something about that changes materially, unless Mike McCarthy gets better at game management, no, I can't see the Dallas Cowboys in the Super Bowl.
They're not struggling in the red area. They're 15 for 22 in their last 4 games in the red area. That's a September argument.
But
they're not. They're scoring.
They were 4 of 8 last night, Dan. 4 of 8 inside the red zone. You had situations.
A 1-game sample. I'm giving you a 4-game
down
sample.
on the 3-yard line. First down on the 3-yard line. First down on the 6-yard line. And you settled for field goals. What about the end of the Eagles game?
They scored 41.
Okay, they're beating tomato cans. Congratulations, Dan.
I'm just happy the heat is on somebody else other than me.
Against teams that aren't good.
All right. I have to let
That's great.
I have to let Canty
Phenomenal.
They're not.
Phenomenal, Dan. That's
I
great.
love sitting over here, by the way.
That's great.
I have to let Chris go. Unsportsmanlike ESPN radio.
Great in the red zone. They're 4 of 8 in the red zone yesterday.
That's 50%.